cilia, speratome, dermatome, myotome. Okay. All right, now right here, during embryonic development, and I'm going to downplay this now, but this is something that might show up on a standardized exam. All right, at least the last part. During embryonic development, when we're developing as an embryo, 3 different kidneys form. 3 different forms of a kidney will take place in our little bitty developing bodies. In our little bitty early developing bodies, 3 different situations which lead to the final one. But the first 2, in other words, 3 pairs of kidneys form in the intermediate mesoderm. And that mesoderm lateral to the somites. 3 different kinds of kidneys. Only one of them, though, only one pair is functional in us. The other 2 are there for a short period and they disappear. They go away. All right, and so they go by turn, and I've heard this all my life. Since I started taking biology in college, didn't hear it, not all my life, didn't hear it in high school because I didn't have anybody who knew any biology in high school. You may have had good biology teachers, I didn't. All right, okay, they didn't know what they were doing. All right, but proniferous is the most superior. In other words, you might need these terms. I'm not going to ask you details of them. This proniferous kidney, it begins to degenerate during the 4th week of embryological development, and it's completely gone by the 6th. It's never functional. Never does a thing. All right, and then the proniferous ducts do remain. We don't need to worry about that. All right. How many of you remember what a cloaca is? You remember what a cloaca is? You remember the word cloaca? Y'all don't remember that, do you? Frogs have a cloaca. They don't have an anal. They don't have an anus. They have a cloaca. You remember what a cloaca is? Cloaca is where the waste product from the urinary system comes into an area, the same place, the waste products from the digestive system. It's not called a rectum, it's called a cloaca. Because the urinary and the stuff from the digestive tract all comes into that same area, which is the cloaca, and it goes out the opening, which is not called the anus, but it's called the cloacal opening. And so right here we have so you and I all had a cloaca. I'm going to show you some interesting pictures in a minute. Not that you have to remember much of it. But we had now the mesonephros, this is the 2nd type of kidney. It's never functional in us. It is functional in a frog, though. But it's never functional in us. Frog is an amphibian. All right, the mesonephros develops inferior to the it replaces the pronephros, has tubules known as mesonephric ducts, which no problem with that. The mesonephros is not functioning in the human, but it appears to be structurally capable of being functional, but it's never functioning. All right, what are the 3 types of kidneys? What are the first 2 types? The pronephros. Pronephros, mesonephros, metanephros. Those terms might pop up. Not any great detail of each of these things, but the mesonephros is not functional in the human. It does appear to be functionally, structurally capable. Begins to disintegrate or degenerate, disintegrate, whatever you want to say, by the 6th week. 6th week of what? Embryological development. By the 6th week. Now this next one right here, though, this is the one that you and I have. This is the kidney type. It's called a metanephros. 3rd pair develops from this embryonic and so forth. This pair develops into the adult kidney. That's the main thing you need to remember. Pronephros is number 1. It begins to disintegrate by about the 4th week. The mesonephros is the 2nd one. It begins to disintegrate by about the 6th week. And then this one comes on. This is the one you and I have. This has all the parts, but I'm going to show you something that develops from, and I just said it develops from the distal end of the mesonephric duct near the cloaca. See, you and I had a cloaca. I'm going to show you how this works. It develops from now here, this doesn't mean anything to you until I show you a picture. I'll come back to this, and let me show you. The uteric bud, you need to remember, and metanephric mesoderm. The uteric bud is going to develop into what we call the collecting duct. It's going to develop into the minor calyx, the major calyx, the renal pelvis, and the ureter. This other thing right here, the metanephric mesoderm, develops into the all-ever famous nephron. The nephron. All right, now let me show you. I'm going to show you. The uteric bud, there's the word uteric bud, appears about the 5th week. 5th week of what? Embryological development. All right, now watch this. Now look at it. Uteric bud, now there it is right there, and I'm going to show you. There's the collecting ducts, calyx. I'm going to go back over this, but I'm going to show you a picture. The pelvis and the ureter. The metanephric mesoderm develops into the nephron. What is the nephron, y'all? What do you remember the nephron as? Come on, Shannon. What's the nephron? It's the functional unit of the kidney. The nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. All right, everybody remembers that. All right, now watch this. The nephron forms the nephrons. All right, now this picture is going to explain it. Now let me show you. Here's this little developing thing. Here's this little parasite, Adrian. Here's the little parasite developing. This is the parasite, okay? This is a 5th week old embryo. Here's the 5th week old. Here's the degenerating pronephros. You can't really tell it. Mesonephros, metanephric, okay, now look right here. Here, okay, look. Here's the GI tract. Here's the. You remember this from other stuff we talked about? Remember the term stomadeum? Remember the term proctodeum? All right, now look at this right. Here's the yolk sac, which that's an extra embryonic method. We'll talk about this when we talk about reproduction. The yolk sac. All right, there's the allantois, responsible for some part of the blood vessels in the developing, the placental, the umbilical arteries and veins, the allantois. All right, now watch this. Here's the gastrointestinal tract right here. Now look, right here. Now look, here is the excretory. All right, you and I had a cloaca at one time. Nikki, did you know that? You had a cloaca at one time. Here's this cloaca. In other words, the cloaca, the waste product from the developing kidney, the waste product here, and the waste, which is really not much because these things are not taking food, but it would, if it were forming, it would all empty into this thing. This thing right here would not be called an anus. It would be called a cloacal opening. And so don't forget what a cloaca. What if I were to ask you? What if I were to ask you on a bonus question? Define the term or explain what is meant by the term cloaca. Could you do that? All you would have to say, a cloaca, a primitive structure in early development where the urinary system would join with the digestive. And rather than all that, in the digestive now, see, we have everything coming into the rectum, out the anus. In the urinary, everything goes from the ureter to the bladder to the urethra, two separate things. But in a cloaca, the urinary system joins with the digestive, and everything would empty into the same holding area. That holding area would be the cloaca. Then the stuff would go out. See, frogs have a cloaca. You don't say an anus on a frog. I used to teach zoology. You don't say an anus on a frog. It's a cloacal opening. So frogs have a cloaca. They belong to the class Amphibia. You and I belong to the class Mammalia. Of course, obviously, we're totally different. Okay, so there it is. Now, see right here? Now, here's the thing, notice this right here. Right in here, okay, notice this right here. Here's this little extension right here. It is made up of 2 parts. Metanephric mesoderm, that's where the nephron develops. Uteric bud, that's where remember I said, okay, the collecting duct, the minor calyx, the major calyx, the pelvis, and the ureter all develop from this uteric bud right here. Now right here now notice this right here. Here it is by the 6th week. By the 6th week, it looks like this. Stuff hadn't developed yet. There's a urorectal fold and a rectum. Things are beginning to separate now. Starting to separate, although it's not completely separated. But there you kind of see it by the 6th week. A few little changes. But the main thing you need to remember right here. And let's go back to this last slide real quick.